Hey, good afternoon, folks. We're going to talk about what we learned in class today. So go ahead and just kind of summarize a little bit. So here's the deal. We're doing a little bit more on the quantitative data. It's kind of our last day of the unit. Next class will be a review, but here is what we are talking about. We have a data set. So this is about oil wells, and we're looking at the amount of oil recovered from 38 wells. So again, if we're looking at this, what this tells me is we got a sample size of 38. And what we got here is we got ourselves a dot plot. This is a dot plot, all the dots stacked up. So if I was reading this, this would be 25,000 barrels of oil. This would be 100,000 barrels of oil. So what measures would you use to describe the center and spread of these data? So the first thing, in order to figure out center and spread, is you need to figure out shape. And shape, when you look at this, if you kind of look at this guy right here, you look at it, it's definitely got a tail to the right. This thing is probably going to be best described as skewed right. So the three shapes that you're going to most often see are skewed left, skewed right, and roughly symmetric. So this is skewed right. Since it's skewed right, we are going to use median as our measure of center. We're going to use either range or IQR, interquartile range, as our measure of spread. Now, let me be honest with you. The way we work this is, if you have a skewed distribution, whether it's left or right, you're going to use median as your measure of center. You're going to use your IQR or your range as your measure of spread. If you have a roughly symmetric distribution, so if we have a roughly symmetric distribution, we're typically going to use mean and standard deviation. That being said, if I give you a picture of the graph, I'm going to use the median and the IQR, because in order to figure out mean and standard deviation, I got to type all this data in the calculator. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm never going to ask you to type that many data points into the calculator. So in this case, median is halfway through the data. The way I taught you in class is take 38 divided by 2, 19, even numbers. So I'm going to take the 19th and the 20th data point. What I mean is not 19 and 20. I'm going to take the 19th and 20th data point. So if you look at this, these are in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 in each row. So 5, 10, 15. This would be the 19th. This would be the 20th. This would be number 19. This would be number 20. I take the average of those two, 46 plus 48. So for median, it's 46,000 barrels of oil plus 48,000 barrels of oil divided by 2. And that's going to tell me it's 47,000 barrels of oil. Okay. The next thing is we're going to figure out range or IQR. So I'll start off with the easier one. Range is max minus min. So max minus min. So in this case, our maximum number is 157. Our minimum number is 3, so 154 is the range, so 154,000 barrels of oil. Okay. But I'm going to be honest with you, because I'm already kind of looking ahead and I see this outlier thing. We're going to worry about IQR. IQR is going to be our third quartile, 75% of the way of the data, minus our first quartile, 25% of the way through the data. So what I need to do is, again, I need to find the middle of this lower half. So this chunk right here, that's my lower half. I got to find the middle of that. I also have to find the middle of my upper half, which would be this one right here. So the upper half. So if you look at it, there's 19 items in my lower half. 19 items in my lower half. So there's 19 in the lower. There's 19 in the upper. So what I want to do is I want to find the middle of the lower. 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. Since it's an odd number, we're going to take the 10th data point. We always round up, so that'd be the 10th. So 510. Quartile 1 is going to be 35,000 barrels of oil. That's our quartile 1. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right there. That's our third quartile. So our third quartile is 65. So that tells me that our interquartile range is 30,000 barrels of oil. Okay, so the reason that we want to use IQR is going to come into play here when we do our outliers. So the reason, again, I'm doing median and IQR is because the distribution skewed. And I'm getting a nice little light from outside. So, okay. The next thing says a 5-number summary. 5-number summary is going to be your min, your quartile 1, your median, your quartile 3, and your maximum. Already got 3 of these numbers. I know that this is 35. I know that this is right up top 47. This is 65. Min and max are easy. We actually already got those as well. 157 is your max. 3 is your min. There's my 5-number summary. 3, 35, 47, 65, 157. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to worry about my outliers. If I'm going to draw my outliers or figure out my outliers, the way outliers calculated is this. I'm going to take the 3rd quartile and I'm going to add 1.5 times the IQR. I'm going to take the 1st quartile and I'm going to subtract 1.5 times IQR. So in this case, I'm going to take that 65. I'm going to add 1.5 times 30. So that says 65 plus 45 gives me 110. So 110 is my cutoff point on the high end. If I look, that guy's an outlier. So that tells me 150 barrels is an outlier. I'm going to repeat the process to find the low end. I'm going to do 35 minus 1.5 times 30. And that's actually going to be 35 minus 45. That's going to be negative 15. There's no low outliers because I don't have any negative oil. So there's an outlier right there. And there's my explanation of why. When it comes to a box plot, folks, I'm going to tell you, you're typically, if any graph you're ever going to be asked to draw, it would be a box plot. And what they're going to do is, or what I would do is I'm going to give you a number line. And on that number line, I'd already kind of have it hashed off somehow. And honestly, College Board will even, honestly, probably even number these. So what I might say is College Board might say like 30, this way, sorry, 0, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. So if I wanted to draw this box plot, I basically take this number, this 5-number summary, and I bring it down. So my median would be 47. So 47 would be right about there. That'd be about 47. My quartile 1 would be 35. So I'd say right about there. That's 35. My quartile 3 is 65. I'd say that's about 65. There's my box plot. Now the way this works out is the whiskers are going to do the following. I'm going to go to my minimum. My minimum is 3. So what will happen is there's my minimum. So that's about 3. Like I said, this is about 35. It's about 65. Now we know that this guy above 150, which is actually 157, sorry, 157. So we know that this guy is an outlier. We'll mark him with a star. Where we're going to draw this other line is right about here. That's that 90, sorry, the 98. The biggest value that's not an outlier. There's our box plot. And what I would say is barrels of oil down here. So that's kind of a summary, a little bit of what we talked about today. Part of it. Backside actually does another part of it. What I want to actually do is I want to talk about just this last question, because this last question is a really nice one about standard deviation. Standard deviation is talking about how much variability, how much variation there is to my data, like how spread out it is, if you will. I'm going to let you know that all of these graphs down here have the same mean. Every single one, A, B, C, E, all have ABC, all have the same mean. If I were to average them out, the mean falls right here in the middle. I'm telling you, all of these have the same mean. What I'm going to talk about is standard deviation. Standard deviation talks about how far, on average, one of these data points falls from that mean, that middle, that center. And I'm going to tell you, if I was going to rank them from the smallest standard deviation to the largest standard deviation, this one is going to have the smallest. This one's going to have the largest. This one's going to be in the middle. And let me explain why. In this case, all of these have the same average, whatever that number is in the middle. But if you look at it, in this data set, 4 of the data points are the mean. So they are 0 away from that average. They are right on the average. And I only have 4 of them that are kind of at the extremes. When I deal with this one, only 2 of them are right on the mean. So their distance from this number is actually 0. They get some bigger numbers coming out. When I look at this guy here, this one's got the biggest because even though the mean is here, we're way, way far apart. So standard deviation is a measure of how spread out your data is. So what ends up happening is, let's say, for example, I had a distribution D, and my distribution D looked like this. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I have a dot here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All of them are right in the center. This guy would have a standard deviation of 0. Because the mean is here in the middle, and all of them are the mean. So that tells me I have no standard deviations. It's 0. So hopefully that helps. Please use the daily reflection to ask me questions, and I will see you all next class.